Welcome to the 1871 podcast, and on tonight's episode, we're focusing on the successful Reading team back in the mid-1990s. So that's tonight's episode. And then on tomorrow's episode, we're going to bring you a preview for the Burnley game on Saturday. And Johnny and I will be continuing our countdown of our favourite Reading players and seeing if Dylan Kerr is among them. He might be. We'll let you know afterwards.
Better be.
And then, so that's tomorrow. And then on Friday evening, it's our 106th episode. So naturally, we'll be focusing on the 106 season. And then on Sunday, it's the 40th anniversary since the announcement from Robert Maxwell that he was going to try and merge Reading and Oxford United. So we'll be recording that episode on Friday evening. So if any of you can remember that far back and you'd like to join us for that episode, please get in touch. That's going out on Sunday. And we're joined on tonight's episode by Royals legend Dylan Kerr. Hello, Dylan. How are you?
Always good. Always good. Good to be kind of in England.
Yeah, good to see you again. We know you've got you have problems with load shedding out in South Africa, and I think you've had something going on today, haven't you? So hopefully we'll get a good connection with you for this episode. And we're also joined by our special guest for tonight, Alan Clements. So Johnny's not with us; he's working, but we're joined by Alan, who has written a book about the successful Reading team that Dylan was part of in the 90s. So looking forward to having a chat with Alan about that. But before we talk about that, let's have a quick word with Dylan about Marumo Gallants, because Marumo Gallants, you drew against Kaizer Chiefs at the weekend, Dylan, to move off the bottom of the table. And then if you beat Chipper United in tonight's game, you'll move clear of the relegation zone. So we wish you well with that, Dylan. And before we talk about your time at Reading with Alan, just wanted to get your reaction, Dylan, to yesterday's news that Paul Ince has been sacked and replaced by Noel Hunt as interim manager until the end of the season. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, I think it's been coming from the tweets that I've been reading. Look, Reading fans are, upset where they are, and at the last minute, you've got to look, who's responsible, and there's been some very, very negative comments, you can't really do, it's the players that are going to get you out of danger. It's the players that's going to win your games. You've got to make sure that they're on your side. And we spoke about this a few times before, Mark, that to get the players to play for you, you've got to give them inspiration. You've got to give them, something to believe in. And obviously the 6 points hasn't helped the situation, but at the same time, when Paul Ince took the job, Paul Ince had been out of the game for quite a long time. So this was kind of like to resurrect his career and to maybe get himself back in the fold of people in bigger clubs or better clubs. No disrespect to Reading, but it's not worked. And at the end of the day, you can blame the deductions, you can blame the embargo for the transfers, but there's players out there. There's players he's got to work with, and at the end of the day, it comes down to him, unfortunately. Sometimes players don't play the best, and players sometimes, want that change. I'm not saying that the Reading players were doing that, but when you're down and your results are not coming your way, you see a change in character and change in attitude of players, and that's why I've always said, you've got to make sure that when them players come into work, they're there to play and they're there to train, and and they've got to go home with a smile on their face.
Yeah.
And when they're losing, one of the things you've got to get is to start to get, and I'm doing that right now. Like I said,
yeah,
we've got a big game tomorrow. We drew on Saturday against a very good Kaizer Chiefs team at the FMB Stadium where the World Cup was played. They'd had a week off. We played midweek, a very, very tough game at Royal AM, and I made two forced changes. So 9 players that were playing on Wednesday played on Saturday, and they give everything. And a bit of luck, we'd have come away with 3 points. But the beauty of it is we came off the bottom of the league. We've now got the massive game tomorrow. It's what as they call a 6-pointer, and the confidence and the momentum's with us at the moment. So, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, we wish you well with that, Dylan. And we're actually recording this on Tuesday evening. It's going out on Wednesday evening, so it's actually tonight that is taking place by the time this episode goes out. So we wish you well with that. And you talked about it's been a bit of an unhappy camp at Reading, and I think that news yesterday that Paul Ince had been sacked and Noel Hunt's come in has just given a bit of a lift to the club, to the fans, probably to the players, I'm sure. Noel Hunt coming in and just actually giving us more of a chance of staying up now. And you're absolutely right, Dylan, what you say, that you've got to have that kind of confidence and feel good factor if you're going to win games. And you certainly had that in your time at Reading. We all remember that really well. And we're going to talk to that now, talk to Alan about that now. And it was such a great, I remember being a Reading fan at that time, and it was such a great team to watch. It had so much energy about it, and you were part of that, Dylan. And just want to talk to Alan, bring you in now. Alan, so firstly, tell us about your book. What's it called? What's it all about? And when is it available? Is it available now, or is it coming soon?
So the book's called Magic Hat, after the song that Reading fans used to sing about Mark McGhee. I'm still in the midst of writing it. My aim is to speak to as many of the players and the management staff as I can. I've not got many people left to speak to, actually, so I'm hoping to speak to Andy Bernal fairly soon, and then I've just got 3 or 4 left to speak to. So it was really special time to be a Reading fan. I was at university at the time. I got my season ticket on the Tilehurst end for £90, and I'm in the midst of writing the book. I'm hoping to finish it this year. It's been quite a long process because I'm doing it in my spare time. I'm a data analyst, so I'm just writing it in my spare time, doing it on my phone when I sort of get half an hour here and there, and really enjoying it. And spoke to Dylan, crikey, last year now, I think, and he gave me a lot of it. I mean, he was very friendly and very helpful, and helped put me in touch with Jeff Hopkins. So really enjoying the process.
And Alan, if you paid £90 for your season ticket, that was about you paid about £1 a point, didn't you? That works out to something like that. So that was that was pretty good, wasn't it?
Point, like £1 and a penny, I think.
Yeah, something like that. And I think I'm right in saying you've spoken to the likes of Darius Dovchet, Stuart Lovell. Who else have you spoken to, Alan, for the book?
I've spoken to Lee Nogan. I've spoken to Colin Lee, Kevin Dillon, Jeff Hopkins, Dylan, as I mentioned, Adi Williams, Simon Osborne, Shaka Hislop. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to go through the team. Midfield. I haven't managed to get in touch with Scotty Taylor. I haven't managed to get in touch with Ray Ranson. Michael Gilks I spoke to recently. Uwe Hartenberger I spoke to through, there's a Reading fan in Germany called Marco Bader, who he spoke to Uwe Hartenberger for me, asked me a load of questions. I can see Dylan smiling about Uwe because he's always got a story about Uwe.
King's Cross.
The people I haven't spoken to yet are Keith McPherson, Jimmy Quinn, Mick Gooding, James Lambert, and the person I'd really like to speak to is Mark McGhee, but I've not been able to get in touch with him. So if you're listening, Mark, I'd like to speak to you.
What about Shaka? Have you spoke to Shaka?
I have spoken to Shaka. Yeah, I email him now and again with the odd question. He's great to speak to. He incredibly friendly, really bubbly character and effusive I try and listen to sort of podcasts with all the players have done, like the 1871 podcast, and any that I can find, I try and listen to. So although I haven't managed to speak to Ray Ranson, I did manage to find a podcast with him on, and just do lots of research online. And it was amazing time to be a Reading fan. So yeah,
certainly was. And Alan, when's the book coming out, do you think?
So I don't know. I would need to find a publisher first. So So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get it all written, and then approach a publisher. So I would imagine probably next year would be the earliest that it would be coming out. But that's what I end.
Well, Alan, I can give you. Mark Riley's just done a book, and he's launching his on the 4th of May, and apparently it's a good publisher. And I've actually sent him the draft of right now. I've just finished. I've just left Leeds and I've just joined Reading. So he's got book 1. So there's book 2 and book 3, and then there's coaching trilogy to come. Good, and I'm reading Mark Riley's book right now, and it's really, really good. It's really, really interesting. But you're talking about Ray Ranson. Ray Ranson, I hate that man. He's a great player, great legend, but he gave me the worst advice ever, and I'm still gobsmacked. I mean, we just joined the club, so we were the new players at Reading, and we were training at Elm Park. It was pre-season. We were training, and Mark and Colin had brought us in for Sunday morning training. So obviously, me and Ray are the new players. So we partnered up. We became the pairs in the warm-up. And he said to me, "What do you do this weekend?" I said, "Well, I've been house hunting. I've been to Pangbourne. I've been to on Calcott Road. I went to London." And his words were, "Let me give you some advice. Don't ever buy a house down south. You'll never sell it. It'll be the biggest mistake you could ever make." That's the worst bit of advice I've ever had. And because I was a young pro and he was a senior pro, you're like thinking, well, okay, and I missed out on 3 houses, one in Pangbourne, one, like I said, on Calcott Road, next to, I think it was next to the Calcott Park Golf Course, and one in Notting Hill. And the last time I checked the house on that road that I was looking at, for a house that was £125,000 back in 1993, was over 3.5 million.
But you're not bitter. You're not bitter, Dylan.
Every time you...
Yeah, just to say, I don't know if you're aware of it, Dylan, at your end, but you're cutting out a little bit. But we know that there's issues with the power and that in South Africa, but generally everything's all right. But look, you mentioned about when you came to Reading, 93-94 season, your first season, Division 2 champions. I think you won Player of the Season that year, didn't you? That was the season that Jimmy Quinn got 40 goals. And the first game of that season was a 3-0 win at Huddersfield. I think former Reading player Steve Francis was playing in goal. And Huddersfield was the team that you nearly joined before you joined Reading, wasn't it? So tell us the story of that.
Correct. No, when I decided to leave, well, it was Gordon Strachan that told me to leave Leeds. Gordon told me to leave Leeds. He says, you're wasting your time here. You need to go make a name for yourself. And Huddersfield Town obviously was just the neighbours, really. So it meant that I didn't have to leave home. But Gordon Strachan phoned Mark McGhee, and I got a phone call from Mark McGhee asking me to go down and talk to them. And when I went down to speak to them, I phoned Billy Eyre, my former coach at Blackpool when I was on loan there. And Billy said to me, "No brainer, Reading, they've got a chance this year of going up." So I signed for Reading, and I've not regretted it. Never regretted it.
You made a great choice, Dylan.
Yeah,
it was like I say.
Oh, we keep losing Dylan a little bit, but Alan, what was your inspiration? Why did you decide to write this book?
I mean, the pandemic happened, and I was pretty bored, and I was looking for something to do, and just everybody was talking about Zoom. And I thought, I just kind of I thought about it over the years and thought how much I enjoyed the team and how it meant to me. And it just, with the advent of Zoom and the pandemic and just having a lot of spare time, it just seemed like the ideal opportunity to sort of jump in and have a go, which is what I've done. So it's I think what really inspired me was the players. It was, football in the 80s and early 90s. You think it was kind of that Charles Hughes led era of long ball football. A lot of teams weren't very good. They lumped the ball forward, they knocked it down, and they scored their goals that way. And Mark McGhee's team was just a breath of fresh air. That they were so different, particularly at the level they were playing at. The third tier of English football, playing this vibrant, exciting, attacking football, and it was just mind blowing that it was my team that was doing this, and there was maybe one or two other sides that played like that. Port Vale that year where they went up with Reading, they played some really good football. Burnley played some good football, but Reading's biggest challenges were Stockport. They had Kevin Francis and Andy Priest up front. They played long ball football, and a lot of the teams were just they were very physical and they were very tough, and they played the long ball game, and it was just brilliant to see Reading passing around them and playing through them, and it was really, really exciting to watch and really fun to watch, and it was good times.
And I think Kevin Francis is 6'7", isn't he? Because I'm sure I saw a picture of him standing next to somebody like Paul Parker, and you could tell the height difference. He looked like a basketball player, didn't he, back in those days? So tall. But I think it was, for me as a fan, it was just great to watch. It, like you said, you used the word vibrant, and you got a sense that there was. There's a real energy about Reading. And of course, you had that intimate ground at Elm Park. You had Michael Gilks, a Reading legend. Obviously, people like Dylan and Shaka in goal, Darius Dovcek and Jimmy Quinn, Stuart Lovell. You could go on. But what have the other players said to you, Alan, about their time at the club? Because we've had most of that team on. We've had Stuart Lovell, we've had Shaka, we've had Paul Holdsgrove. We've had quite a few of those players. What have those players said to you? What's the kind of overriding theme that's come out of your conversations with those players about that time?
I think the overwhelming thing that Dylan often talks about is that they were a team, and they were a team of friends, and they just got on incredibly well, and they wanted to play for each other, and with the recent news of Paul Ince's sacking, it was the polar opposite to what Paul Ince was like. It's that they were a team, and that's what made a big difference. You had Colin Leon recently, and he said about building a team, and it was just putting together a jigsaw puzzle of all the right characters, and and Kevin Dillon being the experienced pro who kind of held the team together and sort of was that driving force in the dressing room, and Dillon being the social coordinator, and Jimmy Quinn being a grumpy, selfish striker who scored an immense amount of goals, and Archie Lovell breaking into the team because he almost left the previous season. McGhee didn't really want him. McGhee didn't really seem to like him a lot, and he was on the verge of going on loan to Wickham, ended up staying, scored 6 goals in 10 games, forced his way into the team. I mean, they were a team. It's that simple, both on and off the pitch, and that seems to have made the difference. You can have some decent players and not really go anywhere. We've seen that with Reading in the past few seasons. We've had really good players, but just haven't been good enough. Whereas that team that won promotion, they were good enough because they played hard for each other and they really enjoyed playing with each other, I think.
And Dylan, coming back to you now, obviously, amazing season in 93, 94, your first season, and you got player of the season, didn't you, that year? And then following season, you just had that momentum and it looked like, you had the really good chance of going straight up to the Premier League. Of course, the league was being restructured. Do you think, and we have had Colin Lee on recently, do you think that if Colin Lee had stayed on, if Mark McGhee had left but Colin Lee had stayed, do you think you would have gone up that season?
I think, well, we didn't change the way we played. We still, Quinny and Geordie took over, but the momentum was there. It was just a different time of where we spent more time with each other on and off the field, that we became, we knew about everybody's character. We knew about, if somebody was having a bad game, we'd crack a joke. Oh,
you still there, Dylan?
I'm still here. Sorry, Alex is phoning
right.
me. Of all people, Alex is phoning me. But we knew that if somebody was having a bad game, we'd crack a joke. Me and Ozzy would have a laugh. If I were having a bad game and Ozzy were having a bad game, we'd have a crack with each other on the field. Same with Parky. Kevin Dillon used to moan all the time, and that was part of his character. But, getting him to smile brought out the best in him. A.D. Williams was so tense, he's so serious in his game because it was a true professional. And, we'd wind AD up, before the game. We'd have a laugh with him in the dressing room. We went for dinner with each other. We went to people's houses. We didn't change anything what we were going to do. We were building something. And when Colin and Mark decided to leave, obviously money would have been a big thing in it. Plus, technically, Leicester City was a bigger club than Reading. It didn't destroy what we had on the field and what we had in the dressing room. We continued it. It was only the season after that it kind of went pear-shaped for Reading. New players came, and we didn't adapt to having co-coaches. We couldn't. No one knew who was making the decisions. You come up to training and Mickey Gooding had put one training session on, and then Quinny would take over. So it kind of upset the balance then of what we were all about.
Yeah, and Alan, Dylan's spoken to us plenty of times about the social side and how kind of close-knit those players were. So you had a few different groups of players. There were the older players, the younger players, but it was a really good team spirit, and that was kind of partly to do with the off the field stuff. So I just want to know, in your book, does Utopia get a mention and places like that as well, or is it mostly about the football stuff?
It's mostly about the football stuff. Yeah, Shaka told me a story about Utopia, which I don't think I can share until I put it in the book. It's just, it was very, very unexpected from Shaka. So I think
Dylan might have told me that story.
I know.
So it was right at the end of the interview with Shaka, and I just threw the question in there. Do you want to share anything about Utopia? And he said, "Well," and it was So you'll have to get the book to find out about that one. But it's it's a good story.
And that was every Tuesday night, wasn't it? You went there.
Every night we were off Wednesday. We used to go to the bowl. We used to meet at the I can't remember what the pub were on Calcott Road. Just as you're driving out towards to the motorway, it was on your right hand side. We used to meet there after training. Then we'd go to the bowling club. Then we'd just end up in Utopia. I mean, the managers let us in for free. I think it was £1 a pint. But it wasn't as good. It wasn't the fact that we went out drinking. It was the fact that we went out for a laugh. You couldn't get me off the dance floor. You couldn't get Simon Osborne away from the bar. You know, Paul Olsgrove were walking around as if he owned the place. You know, and there were the guys, there were all the staff from Curtin's Farm that used to come with us. You know, there were 6 or 7 girls or 6 or 7 guys, and you know they became a bigger part of the Royals family. You know, because you know I introduced them to, you know, obviously we had pre-match meals there, players were staying there, and I invited them out to come and socialise with us. You know, we could have Albons. I mean, you know, Tony Herbert, who won Valbons, I mean, he'd make us, you know, so welcome, you know, that, you know, we'd go there at the weekends. We'd go to the casino. You know, we'd enjoy nights at the casino, especially on a Tuesday and Thursday nights when they did the specials. You know, we'd go and have, you know, 2 or 3 of us would go and have dinner there. We'd bring the girlfriends or wives, you know, and then you've got Washington Heights. Remember, there was only 2 pubs in Reading at the time, you know, and Washington Heights. And I said, I used to go there. I enjoyed it, but, you know, not many of the other players went.
And Dylan, what was it about the kind of social aspect of the players and the team that helped you kind of to transfer that aspect into the playing side? What was it about that helped you as players?
Like I said, we used to come into training and we used to have fun. I mean, like I said, when we spoke to Colin Lee, he was. You didn't want to piss Colin off. You know, he was very straight down the line. You know, and you knew what you wanted from him, and he wanted from you. But we used to train with a laugh. We used to always Scotty Taylor, you know, would start it off. You know, he used to wind people up and it'd be annoying. But the thing is, we respected each other. There was no big hitters. Nobody was on bucket loads of money. Nobody was bigger and better than anybody else. Nobody walked around thinking, you know, that, you know, I'm Jimmy Quinn. You know, I've played X amount of games. I'm a Northern Ireland international. He never did that. Jimmy Quinn was just Jimmy Quinn. You know, and you would think he'd have had you know, with his appearances that he's had and the teams he's played for, you'd think he would have had an ego. Same with Ray Ransom. You know, Michael Gilks, you know, one of the nicest players you've ever wished to play with. You know, we complemented each other. I wanted to attack more than Giltsy. You know, that was, like Colin said, that was my game. Yes, I wasn't the best defender, but I could defend because I went forward and attacked, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And we knew that whoever were playing, you know, they had your back. They didn't want you to fail. They didn't want you to play bad. You know, they didn't want you to, you know, disappoint the faithful. You know, because we embrace their attitude and their energy towards us as we, you know, kind of give our energy and attitude towards them. You know, and you don't get that in football now. I mean, you know, it's very rare that, you know, can you imagine now that the Reading players going over to the Royal Rendezvous and playing pool and having a pint with all the fans and chatting to them? If you've had a good day or a bad day, you know, you'd still go there. You were still part of that family. You know, yeah. And then, you know, and that's what was important. Same at Leeds, same at Sheffield Wednesday. When I went to Blackpool, I did the same there. When I went to Kilmarnock, I did the same. I took everything I've learned. You know, I took that positiveness, that energy into that dressing room. You know, and they couldn't deal with me. They honestly, I think sometimes I used to get on there. You know, come on, right? What we're doing Sunday? Let's meet here. Let's do there. Remember, I told you when I first joined Reading, we went to the White Horse in Pangbourne.
Yeah.
And we had an afternoon, and that afternoon nobody left. Not one player left. Not one player decided that he wanted to go home or he wanted to go somewhere else. We stayed in that pub until they kicked us out, and that's when I knew this was a good squad. This was a good squad, and it were. We went to Huddersfield. We weren't even favourites. We went to Huddersfield. Obviously, they just signed the former keeper. And we hammered them 3-0. We hammered them, and from there, and like I said, you mentioned Stockport County there. I mean, when we played them over that Christmas period, winning that game was winning that game was like the road to winning the championship.
Yeah, and actually the second game, so it was two wins in a row, and that second game we got Burnley coming up on Saturday. It was a 2-1 win at home to Burnley in the second game. So you won 3-0 at Huddersfield the first game, 2-1 at home to Burnley the second game of that season, then lost to Brentford, but beat Barnet, beat Cambridge, Bradford, Plymouth. And then, do you remember, Dylan, that game at Exeter, 6-4 to Reading? Do you remember that one?
Yeah, it was really, really weird because we there were a lot of, what I can remember about that game is at half time, we weren't happy. We weren't a happy dressing room, and we knew what we had to do, and to be in such a commanding lead and then to throw it away, we knew what we were doing was not what we were good at, and then second half, we again, like I say, Jimmy Quinn, what can you say about him? We had this conversation with Colin about him, that incident he had with Scotty Taylor. He had he left, I don't think we'd have replaced that goal scorer. But we did. We kept him, and I say that's what we were about. Every game we never stopped trying. We never stopped trying to win the game, and that's one of the beauty things about Reading Football Club at that time.
And there was quite a few games where you scored sort of 4 goals or 6 goals or whatever. I mean, that game you had Jimmy Quinn got 2 goals, I think. Lovell got 2, Scotty Taylor got 2, and there were, not the next game, but the next game after that, you won 4-0 at Port Vale, and later in the season you won 4-0 at home to Hartlepool, and then you beat Hartlepool 4-1 away that season, and it was just great to watch. And then a 4-0 win at Blackpool towards the end of the season. Do you remember that one?
Oh, that was just like you can never forget it. I mean, I'd returned. I'd been on loan, remember, the year before, and they wanted to sign me. Not only scoring that goal, but at the end of the game, this is no word of a lie, and Colin Lee had said it as well. We got a standing ovation from the Blackpool fans. The Blackpool fans stayed until the end of that whistle and gave us a standing ovation. That's how good we were. That's how good we were. And straight after that, what did we do? Straight across the road to the pub. As a group, not one or two. We all went across, waited till everybody get ready to go back down to Reading, and it was, like I say, that's the group of players we had, and that's what Reading need now. They need to take the players out, go get them all together. Not team building, not team spirit. Just go out and say, right, listen, 5 games, we need 9 points. Yeah. Hey, what a game to play! Burnley champions. Let's go and get 3 points, because that's what they've got to do.
Yeah, that Blackpool away game, that 4-0, was that the one where you scored one of your best goals? It was sort of the left. You did the 1-2 with Stuart Lovell. Was it in that game?
No, that was Stoke. The Black.
Okay.
It was my right foot. Right foot bent it into the bottom corner.
Yeah, I remember that goal. I couldn't remember which game it was. Alan, I just wondered if you could sort of say, obviously you got the inspiration to do the book. Like me, that was a favourite time to be a Reading fan, and it wasn't just 1 or 2 players, because in a season you'll have your favourites, but you could almost go through that whole team, and it's almost like all of the team were favourites. Were there any in particular that stood out for you? And obviously, I know you're going to say Dylan, but it was kind of all of them, really, wasn't it? There wasn't anyone that in that team that you didn't like watching play. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say Xhaka was a huge favourite. I'd seen him play down at Bournemouth the season before, because I lived on the Isle of Wight before I went to university, and it was an easy game to get to. Michael Chilks obviously was a big favourite down the left wing. He was absolutely extraordinary when he was on, and Yeah, that I mean, talking about the Huddersfield game a minute ago, Chelsea almost left the club the week before that. He missed a photo shoot at the start of the season, and the club and McGhee were absolutely livid with him. And the Evening Post reported that he'd been sacked. And then come the Huddersfield game, they'd all made up. Chelsea had 3 assists that day, so he did all right despite almost leaving the club a week before. So Archie was one of my favourite players at the club at that time. And then I just, like everybody, loved watching Dylan play, bombing forward from left back, much quicker going forward than he was going back. And but thankfully he had some decent defenders behind him to bail him out now and then. But he was Dylan was great fun to watch. I remember the game against Bristol Rovers where he got in a bit of trouble for setting up the second goal, I think it was, and jumped up onto the fence and let's say serenaded the Bristol Rovers fans. And it was a lot of fun to watch. But I love watching Mickey Gooding play, full of energy, full of running, just never ever stopped. Phil Parkinson was just amazing in midfield. I always remember him running out at the start of the game with his gum shield in, his knees pumping really high, and then he'd jump and do this imaginary header, charge over to the south bank, clapping, and he was like that and then for 90 minutes he was the same, just charge around, huge tackles, popped up with a goal now and then, and Colin Lee, as Colin Lee said, he developed into a decent footballer at Reading. You know, he was never Simon Osborne, he was never Kevin Dillon, but his passing got a lot better and he got much better as a player. I like Tommy Jones. He was injured quite a lot. He broke his leg twice in 2 seasons. Really tidy footballer, really good footballer. Yeah. And then, Ray Ranson I like, with his enormous thighs and his Fred Flintstone haircut. And obviously Jimmy Quinn scoring 40-odd goals. Scott Taylor, who never stopped running down that right wing and could play up front as well, and also played central midfield. It was absolutely extraordinary team. And then
the following season didn't start off too well. A 1-0 defeat at Wolves, and then the second game was 0-0 at home to Portsmouth. But then Reading started that, building some momentum. There was the 4-0 win at home to Stoke, and I think that's the game, isn't it? When you got your great goal, Dylan. Is that the one early that season?
Yeah. The one we should have won. We should have beat Wolves. We absolutely annihilated them, and we just couldn't score. Just one of those games.
Later in the season, there was the return game at Elm Park, and it was 4-2, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then, of course, Mark McGhee had gone to Leicester, and then he went on to Wolves, and and then Wolves became like Reading's rivals, didn't they?
Yeah.
Partly to do with the Mark McGhee factor, but that was such a great season, and I was at the Middlesbrough game that season in February '95, and Reading won 1-0. I've got a feeling, was it Paul Holsgrove who? Yeah, Paul Holsgrove got the goal, and that was at Middlesbrough's old ground, Ayresome Park, and I was commentaries for Classic Gold Radio. I don't know if you remember that. But I spoke to Jimmy Quinn after the game, and it was just, it looked like Reading could go all the way straight up to the Premier League, but obviously it wasn't to be. I mean, what were your sort of overriding recollections of that season, Alan?
So that season, if you go back and find the highlights of that Wolves game on YouTube, like Dylan said, Reading absolutely battered them. Archie had some chances. I think Ozzy had a good chance. And just absolutely mullered them, but just couldn't score. Portsmouth game, I recall, was a bit tougher. Stoke, couple of players got sent off for Stoke. Very fussy referee from what I remember. But remember, one of my favourite goals for Reading was Dylan's one. Caught it with the outside of his left foot and curled it into the far corner. That was an amazing goal. But I mean, the things from that season that I remember are probably two players, Darius Dubchik and Simon Osborne. You know, Reading were a good passing side when they got promoted, but adding those two players to the mix was just unbelievable. They were so good on the ball. Ozzy scored some absolutely amazing goals, but just his constant, always looking to go forward, always looking to take a chance with a pass, wasn't scared to get it wrong. If he did, he'd just have another go. And his passing was just amazing. And and Darius Dubchik slotting in at the back, absolutely different class of player to anything else that Reading ever had. And Andy Bernal coming along as well for 30 grand, £30,000 from Sydney Olympic. And this is the thing that McGhee did. He did. I don't think he signed one player for more than £100,000. And he brought in Dylan for 75,000. Ray Ransom was free. Darius was free. Simon Osborne was 90,000. Jimmy Quinn 55,000. Actually, Tom Jones might have been slightly more in a swap deal with Craig Maskell. But yeah, just he had no money to work with, and his recruitment was just out of this world. The players he brought to the club that he identified that could play the way he wanted to play, along with Colin Lee, because at that time they were very much a team, and sadly I think they sort of fell out after their time at Wolves. But it was just. But yeah, those two players particularly were the ones that stood out in that season. And Reading suffered a lot of injuries in that season in Division 1 when they reached the playoff final. And it was probably what undid the team in the end, was the injuries finally caught up with them.
And in the final as well, because Lee Nogan went off, he had a calf strain or something like that, didn't he? But, you know, at the end of that season, four wins in a row. I think there was 3-3 draw at home to Port Vale, and then it was actually in that run of 4 wins at the end of the season, there was the 2-1 win against Bolton. But Reading ended up finishing 3 points behind Middlesbrough, 2 ahead of Bolton. Any other season would have gone up automatically, but because of the restructure, meant Reading finished second, and then went through to the playoffs and beat Tranmere in the semi-final, the 2 legs, and then we all know what happened in the playoff final and what happened to Stuart Lovell, and Dylan's talked about that game and all that sort of thing. But look, Alan, it's been great to speak to you. I mean, it's absolutely flown by. We've been talking for about 45 minutes already. Yeah. But we've heard about Dylan's time at Reading already on previous episodes, but it's good to sort of speak to another fan from that era, and recall some really happy memories as a Reading fan and particular games and that sort of thing. So remind us of what the book's called and when you think it might be out.
So the book's going to be called Magic Hat, and I'm hoping it's going to be out in 2024. Okay,
well, good luck with that, and we'll see if we can find you a publisher, either Dylan or myself, or we'll see what we can do to help. So look, that's it for tonight's episode. Thank you to Dylan. Thank you to our special guest, Alan Clements, and good luck in your game tonight, Dylan, against Chipper United. Wish you well for that. And a reminder that tomorrow evening we're going to bring you our preview for the Burnley game on Saturday, and Johnny and I will be continuing our countdown of our favourite Reading players, and you can find out if Dylan Kerr is in that. I think he's got a good shout of being in that. So then on Friday evening, it's our 106th episode of the 1871 podcast. So we're going to have a focus on the 106 season for that. And then on Sunday, we're doing a special episode marking the 40th anniversary of the proposed merger with Oxford United.